Hey, what's up guys? We are back with another video today, and today we'll be talking about 5 ways to make your chords go from this to this. Okay, so number 1 is moving the third of each chord up an octave. So here we pretty much had the same 2 chord progressions played both times earlier in the example, but one had basically these concepts applied and the other one was just in their most basic form, like this, except it was up an octave rather than down the lower octave, because at this octave it can get kind of muddy. So as in the example for the basic chords, I moved it up an octave. So basically, I've kind of went through this already in my emotional chords video, or how to make emotional chords, but I thought I'd make a more shorter, condensed version, I guess, on how to make your chords more interesting. But yeah, so we're going to take the third of every chord. So this is a D minor chord. We're in the key of C, by the way, just to make things a lot more easier. So yeah, this is a D minor, this is a F major chord, C major chord, and a G major chord. So we're going to take all the thirds of the chords and move it up an octave. Basically, in the key of C, it's just basically all the white notes on the keyboard, if you don't really know too much theory. I don't know too much theory myself either, but I have some basic understanding. But basically, the third note is the third note of the chord. So, for example, we have a D minor chord again, and basically you would go count from 1 of the chord, which is D, 1, 2, and 3, then you have the third. And again, and since we're in the key of C, basically you can play all the white keys only and no black keys. So yeah, we moved up all the third notes up an octave, and this is how it kind of sounds like. So it gives a bit more space, as you can see. Even maybe moving up an octave may help a bit. And then if we compare it to what we had earlier, this is basically the chords in their most basic form. And then moving it up a third, or moving up an octave rather. So as you can see, it gives a lot more space, more room for other notes to be played by other instruments and stuff like that, so you don't have too many notes clashing or muddiness basically in your mix. But yeah, for this one, we're actually going to move it down an octave, as we're going to be adding more notes too, and I definitely like the sound of it at a lower octave. But yeah, that brings us to number 2, which is basically using the root note, or I believe the tonic note, which is the 1 note of the key. So since we're in the key of C, the 1 note will be C. So we're going to add a C basically to all the chords, and this is what it will sound like. Right, and as I mentioned in my previous video about how to make more emotional chords, the C and the 5 as well, which we'll get to next, is basically usually safe notes that you can play pretty much in melodies or in your chords and stuff like that. It usually tends to work really well with whatever you're playing. And then which brings us to number 3, which is using the 5th of the key. So again, since we're in the key of C, we can only play the white notes basically. So the number 5 would be C, D, which is 2, E, 3, F, 4, and then G, 5. And then we'll add this basically to all of them. So as you can see, the 5th, or the dominant, I think is what it's called, is also a quite safe note for you to play in your chords and melodies and stuff like that in your track. And sometimes, you don't always have to, leave it like this. You can move it around to see kind of like what fits better for you. If you don't want this like clashing thing here. Maybe if you don't really like that, you can always just move this up to A, which is still part of the D chord, and it'll be a bit more cleaner. So up to you, right? Number 4 would be using sevenths and ninths to add more tension and I guess the word dissonance to your chords. So actually we already have kind of like a I believe sevenths chord here, which just gives that, you know, dissonant feel. We can also do something similar here too. I actually honestly don't really know the names of the chords, but rather than doing A for example, which is basically, you know, F is basically just part of the F major chord, we can actually try doing this at an E. Again, I have no idea what this chord is, but you know, it works. Check it out. Right, it kind of gives a more emotional feel, as again mentioned in you know, a lot of information on my last video. And then for this chord, we can do something similar. Rather than playing the E here, we can do a D, which is no idea what chord that is, but it's probably some, you know, chord, the name that I don't know the name of basically, but yeah. All right. And then sometimes, you know, if you listen closely to the, you know, bottom note, sometimes actually moving this up a little bit can help, depending, you know, how you like it. Yeah, so, you know, this seemed at least a little bit to me, probably more personal or personal like preference. I felt like the G was a little bit too low, and then I moved it to the C, which made it sound a bit more clean. Okay, and then last but not least is making it sound more human. So basically adding kind of like this velocity thing, so it's not always playing at the same velocity, and then also adding like a groove to it, so that way it's kind of playing offbeat a little bit. Or you can manually do it, up to you. But basically, essentially what it's doing is that everything's not playing at the same time. So if you imagine a person, you know, playing the piano, he's probably not going to always be exactly on beat, and he's probably not going to always play all the same keys at the same velocity. So by doing that, you basically add a bit more emotion and kind of like an organic feel to your track. I might have turned it on already, but basically this is with the velocity and groove on. And then with them off. So yeah, it's basically someone just, you know, doing that. So definitely doing this definitely helps kind of make it, again, more organic or more human. And then a bonus one, which is basically kind of changing your chord progression up. So here we have the D minor, F major, C major, and G major. And then you could actually, rather than doing the same chord progression again, we can basically just take this one. I basically made it the same way as I would of how I just showed you earlier. But basically you can kind of change the chord progression a little bit. So here I have F, C, G major, and an A minor. So playing from the top. So yeah, basically keeps the listener engaged and they're not always expecting the same thing. Additionally, you can actually maybe even use the same chord progression, but then change a note on the second progression. So rather than using E, maybe we can go, you know, F, and then maybe E, and then D to kind of change it up. Let's see how that sounds all together. Let's see if it works first. So it definitely works. We'll play it from the top. So yeah, I hope you found this tutorial helpful, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit the thumbs up button and like the video, as well as subscribe to my YouTube channel, and also hit the bell notification symbol so you know when my next video goes live. It definitely helps me a lot, and I'm really trying to do this full time and just trying to do my own thing. And also, if you haven't yet, please follow me on social media, my Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and stuff like that. I'll leave all of the links in my description below. Thanks so much again, and until next time, much love. Peace.